Okay, I'm just doing a tech test right now. So let me just check that it's good that works. Yeah, okay. Not good. Hi, Brandon. Just doing a tech test. How are you doing today? Good? Excellent. Okay. How about you, Jalen? How you doing?
Good.
Good. Okay. And hi, Maria. How are you today?
I'm good.
Excellent. Okay. So it's all working. We hear them. And Brandon also came in on the live chat. So that's good. So that's connected. We're going to start in just a minute or two. Okay. I'll leave my mic on. Oh, yeah, Carol's in. Good. Okay. So I'm just going to close the doors and okay. So let's just see what we have. Oh yeah, and this is going to be Nico. It's going to be coming up here and talking Buddhism a bit. Okay. So let's see. Right. So what are we going to do for this? Okay. What are we doing over here? Yeah. All right. Good. So where it should be. Nice. Good. We're connected there. Camera looks good. Screen looks good. Oh, and I have something here I want to read you. So let me get that teed up. I have, hello, Cece. How are you? Okay. The great Carl Sagan. Okay. Hey, Parsa, come on in. Oh, jeez, I almost ripped my. I almost ripped that. So we'll do that. Guess we'll do that. And then we'll. Good. I see Tessa, Carol, Maria, Jalen, Brandon. I actually think we can begin. So, welcome everyone to Humanity's Destiny, our 11th class. And we need to make sure today, before we launch into Other Worlds Part 2, when we're going to be actually creating a plan for human colonization on Mars. We're going to be doing that today. So before we get there and take all of your good points from last class, where we did some brainstorming around what you think were the critical questions, critical points we should be looking at before we land on Mars. Now we're going to land on Mars today. And I've been just a little backed up this morning with another class, so I haven't teed up my Mars video, but I will get that shortly. So we can also look at some really interesting pictures that we're getting these days from our rover and our exploratory devices that are now beginning to send us more data back from the surface of Mars. So human beings have landed there, and they've been on Mars for actually a few decades in one way or another. Not as humans, not our whole human in 3 dimensions, flesh and blood, but our machines have been there. And we're getting ready now, in the next, probably 3 decades or so to, land, a small group of humans on Mars to begin the first colonization there. It's likely to happen in your lifetime. Not in mine, but unless I can live to 100 or so, I'm gonna be 61 in, December. So I'm trying to live as long as I possibly can with the way medical science is going, but, just a second, I'll put this, but I don't think there's a chance I'm gonna see it happen, but when you are old in your 60s or 70s in the next 50 years or so, I think you're gonna be seeing human colony, the first one of humans who will not be coming back. So I would love to I wish I were you. I wish I were younger. Anyway, so today we have to really look more closely at what actually you think and we think based on our brainstorming as well as further research that you're going to do today, what we think that first colony would look like, what will be up there. Now, before we go any further, I would just like to see who in this class can draw. Does anyone like to draw here, even digitally? Nico, Carol, sort of, yes? Okay, because I would like to find out if there is an application that maybe you could be using to help us draw this kind of very rudimentary colony on Mars. And we could create a kind of a blueprint of what it would look like digitally, if it's possible. If not, then we can use the smartboard to do that, and we can have some drawing done over there by a student who can do that. I'm not the best with drawing, I'm better with words. But Carol, how are you if we had to actually draw something on the board? Would you be able to do that if you had to? Okay, so but first wait and see if you can find something digitally, okay? And then we'll see. That will be our default, is that we go ahead and draw on the board, okay? But we still have some things to do before we get there. So that's the plan today, is Other Worlds Part 2. We're really gonna drill down more, literally drill down and see, because some of the exploration that's being done on Mars is actually drilling into the surface to find out if there's some remains of um, uh, water that has been there. And there is increasing research being done today by um, scientists working in the field of space exploration who think that Mars may have, once upon a time, had life on it and then suffered some kind of catastrophe that burnt it and dried it out completely. So there are many things we don't know yet about Mars. Hi, Mubarak, come on in. So okay, so that's the plan, and I also have a couple of videos I want to show you in a moment to help you begin thinking about your final assignment. So let's look online and see. I'm going to actually bring that up now, and I'll get the board going behind me. So let's bring up the space station is there. Actually, I'm always going the wrong way, but it should be over here. Okay, it's a bit counterintuitive. And for this, I'm going to bring up Toria over. Oh yeah, it's always okay. So that is over here. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll do it that way for now, right now. And the critical thing is to have our notes right in the middle. Good. Okay. So behind me right now, I have the International Space Station live. Let's see, or is it recorded? No, it looks like it's live. We're getting, and right now at 1:20 p.m. Oshawa time, or 1320 hours in this part of the world. The space station right now is over Pakistan, and that is a live picture right now of the planet from the space station as it's going around the planet. It takes 90 minutes for it to go in an orbit, and let's see how clear things remain. That's right. Now it's moving over India, and let's see how else, what we're looking at in terms of our altitude right now for the space station going up into the sky is 420 kilometers away from the planet, and it's moving at a speed of 27,586 kilometers per hour. That's pretty fast. It's about, if you want to visualize or try and imagine the speed, it's kind of like going from Toronto to Oshawa in about 2 seconds. Oof, that's fast. Okay, so we have space station up there. We're in orbit, and I like to think that when we have a class that lasts about 90 minutes or so, it's a bit like an orbit. We're going around the planet. We're going to go around the story of humanity as well for 90 minutes. So, any questions here before we start? Anything on your mind about, for example, the reflections that are coming a little bit more regularly now in terms of deadlines, you may have noticed? And I also want to talk specifically about the big reflection, the sixth one, which is your final assignment. It's the same thing. And I want to show you something that students have done for their final assignments as videos. But let's see how we're doing online. Okay, good. Brandon, are you responding to, oh, you can draw? Is that correct, Brandon? Is that what you're responding to? Okay. Maybe we'll try something kind of different. Let's see for it looks like Brandon, so you can actually draw with a pen or a pencil or anything like that, right? Are you able to jump on your microphone, at least so we can do this in real time?
Hello?
Go ahead and see if we can get your audio. If not, okay. Yeah,
Are you able
good.
to hear me?
We can hear you now. Go ahead. So
Okay.
you can draw. You can actually draw.
Yeah, I did a lot of perspective art around middle school. I can't draw people, but I did mostly like bird eye views of like certain uh in-game
Great.
maps and stuff.
Do you have a paper and a writing instrument with you right now or close to you?
I could find one.
Could you? Because I think this would be better, that we would get Brandon to draw, and then we can come back and check in with you digitally. I'd like to do both, okay, Carol? And try it both at the same time and see how we make it really fun. We can do the digital, we can do it over on the smart board, but let's at least get somebody drawing with a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, because that's what I normally do with this exercise, is teams will create a blueprint, a visual blueprint of what the first colony looks like on Mars.
So that's what you want me to try and draw, or do you want
We're
to try
going
and
to do it
draw
together.
about the
Just get ready. Don't start yet, okay, Brandon? Just
Got
get
it.
ready, because we're gonna do that together, and we're gonna check in with Carol on that and digitally. Okay, great. So that's nicely teed up, and we can come to that. I just want to come back to. Does anybody have any questions here? No. Okay. Then why don't I first, by way of gradually moving towards our blueprint, I'd like to talk about your reflections and then the final assignment, show you the video. Then I'd like to do a quick review and have Nico come up finally and tell us if you think you can, because he's not contagious right now. He's not transmit. He had COVID, and that's why he wasn't here last week. He emailed me and said, I better not come to class, and I appreciated that. But he's here today and he's fine. So his doctors told him he's not COVID is not transmissible. But originally he was going to tell us a bit about Buddhism. And remember we were talking about religions and how important that was. But I don't know if his brain is foggy or not because of COVID. Are you able to tell us about some of the things in Buddhism that your father might have helped? Okay. Well, then keep it on your phone, and we'll come to that in a moment, okay? Just wait for a moment. But the idea is that in terms of today's class, when we talk about religion, which we certainly did, science and religion, we also established something at the end of last week's class. Remember when we were making a list and we did the notes, and I mentioned to you that there was something you were all missing, and it's quite common, which is the psychological impact of going into space for prolonged periods. What might that do to the human mind? And actually, I would like you to also think today as we move forwards about the idea of how will the first human settlers on Mars deal with their spiritual needs? What role might their religion play when they're away from the planet? And this is significant because if you think about it, all of our religions were created by human beings on planet Earth. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I will stand corrected, whether it's the Baha'i faith, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Hinduism or any other faith, none of those religions have anything to say about what humans should be thinking about and believing when they're living somewhere else in the solar system. Or maybe they do. I'd like you to think about that because when you draw today, or we draw together what this colony is going to look like, what exactly will be the structure or where will be the place where the humans who are living there fulfill their spiritual needs? Just need to think about this, okay? We're going to be coming. There are two great forces in the human story that matter to humans now. They've mattered to us from the beginning of civilization, and they will matter probably as long as we are human. And that is the force of science and the force of religion. So it's very important to think about what role will faith or spirituality or religion have when we're not on this planet. And to conclude this thought, I'd just like to remind you, there's a very good chance that in your lifetime, you are going to witness a human mission to Mars, where they will stay there, and it won't be a Hollywood movie. So it's going to be pretty awesome and weird to be watching this happen. So we need to think about what this means. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about their fourth reflection and now the fifth reflection? I want to remind you of let me just go over now and show you. And for those of you who are online, you can see this on the big board behind me right now, and that is our DC Connect page, Humanity's Destiny. It's right there, okay? Reflection number 5. Your fifth reflection is due Friday, December the 1st, and it's based on today's class. Okay, so let me just review, make sure everybody's on top of things, okay? Reflection 5 is due Friday, December the 1st, so not this Friday, but the following Friday, and you'll be reflecting on today's class. Okay, clear? That's reflection 5. Reflection 4 is due actually in 2 days. Today is Wednesday, the 22nd. Your fourth reflection is due on Friday, 11:59, and it is based on the class from last week, November the 15th. Now, if any of you have done this reflection already, this is repetitious, but I just want to make sure it's clear for all of you at the risk of sounding repetitious. These reflections now that you're doing include research. So there's a new thing I've added, okay? In each reflection, the fourth reflection, I want one research reference in the body of what you're writing. And in reflection number 5, I want 2 research references in the body. So that when reflection 6 comes, that's due right at the end of the semester, that's your big assignment. That's going to have at least 3 research references in it with a works cited page. So I'm getting you ready with these reflections and research for this big final assignment that you'll be writing or you'll be doing as a video, where you will have works cited and 3 research references at least.
I have a quick question about that.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just want to make sure. Okay, first, am I too loud or am I too aggressive when I talk? I can't hear myself, so I'm not sure how bad it is.
No, you sound fine. That's Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, good. So do you want it to be like APA format, or do you just want it to be like a
MLA or
link at the
APA?
bottom?
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Grayson. For the fourth reflection, just one. Just one. Fifth reflection, 2. And then the final assignment, there will be a whole assignment sheet. But in it, you will see it will be a minimum of 3, between 3 and 5. Okay? Sure, Carol. And here's, you can move the microphones around so everybody can hear.
From today's lesson?
Yes, it's reflection 5 is based on today's lesson, but it's due next on December the 1st. Okay?
I'm just taking notes 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
Want to double check
It's-
the numbers and more confused than I am. Okay, and then reflection 4 is from last week, right? Based on-
Exactly. And if you need to refresh your memory, you can just check the recording. But it's based on last week's. And so there you'll see reflection 4.
Okay.
So make sure you understand, because these are your grades now. You know, this is all important. And then you have a big assignment coming, and I'll be posting the assignment sheet very shortly in the next couple of days. And it will be due, I believe, it's going to be December the, just a second, I can tell you right now. Give me a moment. It's the final week of class. And I think the final class is is it Friday, December the 15th? I'm pretty sure Friday, December the 15th. So it's going to be in that week, I think, for this class. It might even be that Tuesday, but it will be in about 2.5 to 3 weeks. You're going to have your big assignment with 30%. Okay, great. So Brandon, I like the way you just jump on your microphone like that. If you have a question, that's the way it should work. And by the way, while we're on the DC Connect page, I'd just like to show you something kind of interesting that's happening. November the 27th, 7 to 9 p.m. For free. The Mental Health in the Digital Age Lab at Ontario Tech is having a conference, the 3rd annual, called Mental Health in the Digital Age. And the reason I'm promoting this is partly because of the topic, which is important, but also because the student there who's involved in putting this together, the PhD student, has been very involved in the global classroom as well when she was here running the Institute for Student Leadership, Madison Wesley. And she's doing her PhD there now on this very topic, mental health in the digital age. So she's working with the lab, and they're putting on this conference. You can join and interact with and learn from, well, take a look at this agenda. Okay, so this is optional. It's totally optional for you, but I think it's important topic. Mental health in the digital age. Oh, there's a whole program here. I've got to go back for a moment. I think I don't want to leave the site. Whoops. What just happened? I'm somewhere where I shouldn't be. Let me come back here. Yeah, so it's there's a program that I thought I had here. Yeah, here it is. Click here for details. So there we go. Let's take a look at this. So November the 27th, 2023, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. The opening address here is by the director of the Mental Health and the Digital Age Lab. She's an assistant professor and licensed psychotherapist and creative arts therapist at Ontario Tech. And listen to this. Featured presentations include, is digital detox just another buzzword or tech fad? I guess digital detox means that you kind of go to a place or go to a period of time where you don't use any digital technology. You're in detox. It's like an addict. You don't drink, so you don't use digital technologies for a while. Is that useful in helping people who have problems? Interactive technology for social emotional learning in the primary classroom. How does social media impact adolescent students' mental health? Cyberbullying through social media. And essentially, it's exploring a theme that I really think is significant. And I'm seeing an example of this right now. Think about it. The only person who is actually not using a digital device at the moment is Grayson. But think about how powerful these tools are in your lives. And in a way, you and your other younger people today and your children and grandchildren are like the guinea pigs in civilization. We've never had this kind of intervention of technology in our lives in human history, to the point where people are wondering, what are we doing to human beings with all of this technology? And we have to ask some important questions that can make sure we don't lose ourselves online. So I'm not going to go any further with this, okay? I just want you to know that it's there as a resource for you. If you have any mental health issues, and I'm not going to ask anybody any personal questions. I'm just saying this out loud to the whole class. I know for a fact, because of the research I've seen and because of what I see when I talk to students one-on-one, and because of the enormous amount of material today on mental health that we see around us, that a lot of students, including probably quite a few in this class, have mental health issues that they're struggling with. Whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's the inability to interact with other human beings because you spend so many hours online that you don't know how to talk to people anymore. You need to be thinking, we all need to be thinking more deeply about what are these machines doing to us if we're becoming so dependent on them. So, with that in mind, let's try something for a second, okay? You ready, Nico, to come up? Come up, and we're gonna try something just as a way. And I want to be very gentle with this because he's just coming off COVID right now, so you may have a bit of brain fog. So I don't want to put you too much on the spot, okay? But I want you to be able to tell us without that phone in your hand. Okay. So I'm going to say that's brain fog. That's COVID, okay? But I want you to be able to communicate with the rest of us without your machine. And that's what we've been doing a lot of. Parsa's here, Tony's here, we have interaction. I know Carol's always connected because whenever I ask her a question, she's listening. But this is helping her to have the computer there, so I totally understand. Okay, so, but I want you to think, to think about this idea and to remember that if you have any questions, any concerns around your social media usage, the amount of time you're spending on Instagram or TikTok or anything, and you feel like you're losing touch with reality in some ways, maybe you want to go to this conference and learn more about how to get on top of these things and not let the technology control you. Am I talking nonsense? Or is it stuff you've already thought about? Is this something you've thought about, Nico, a little bit? No? You're in brain fog. This is COVID fog right here, but at least you showed up to class, which is great. Okay, thanks. Grayson, is this something you've thought a little bit about, the idea of what is my relationship with technology, and am I using it too much to the point where it's affecting how I interact with other people, or I'm no? Okay, okay. Parsa, have you thought about it at all? A little bit? Work, yeah. So when you go out, or you're gonna see somebody, or a friend, you actually go out and you hang out in person, yeah, as opposed to online. Yeah. Yeah. Not the city, St. Louis, the restaurant, the pub. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyways, just think about it. There's a very interesting conference. It's happening live. It's free. You might learn something. It's completely optional. But let me come back now and uh, let Nico explain a little bit with his phone in hand. If I'll let you hold it now, because you have some important information, and then I'm going to show you a video from a final assignment. So why don't you come up and read from this and tell us about Buddhism. This is something that Nico knows about, and he also has some interesting something to read. Tell us a bit about this faith. Because maybe the people who go to Mars may need Buddhism to help them deal with what happens up there. But who knows? Okay, go ahead and tell us a bit about Buddhism and why it's significant.
Okay, so I don't practice in Buddhism or anything like that, so I'm just kind of researched about it.
Yep.
So I'm just reading on my phone for what I've got.
Go ahead. Yeah, why don't you read? And just keep in mind that he is coming off COVID. He's not transmissible. He might have a bit of brain fog, but he's still here. He's reading and much appreciated. Go ahead.
So they believe that human life is a cycle of suffering and rebirth, but that if one achieves a state of enlightenment, or what they call nirvana, it is possible to escape this cycle forever. This guy named, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Siddhartha
Gautama. Siddhartha, I know, we talked about him in world history as the founder of Buddhism, the first prophet, if you will.
was the first person to reach that state of enlightenment, and was and still is today known as the Buddha. Basically what it preaches and whatever is that everything in life is impermanent and is always changing, because nothing is permanent. A life based on possessing things or persons doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
There is no eternal unchanging soul, and self is just a collection of changing characteristics and attributes.
Change. So much change. Interesting. Good. Go on.
Buddhism would say that there are countless higher beings in all the possible levels of existence. However, to call the highest and first being of all God could be correct in some ways, but it would be to fall short of the ultimate reality, which is that no thing has the power to create life itself. No, to create itself, I mean.
Sure.
The goal of Buddhism is to become enlightened and reach nirvana. Nirvana is believed to be attainable only with the elimination of all greed, hatred, and ignorance within a person. Nirvana signifies the end of a cycle of death and rebirth. They also are believing that consciousness of spirit continues after death and may be reborn.
Mhm.
Uh, and Buddhism is a non-theistic. I don't know what this is.
Theistic.
Non-theist-
Theistic.
It's a non
God.
non-theistic religion and no belief in a creator of God. Also considered a philosophy and a moral discipline originating in India in the 6th and 5th centuries BCE.
This is great. I can actually help fill this in a little bit, because one of the reasons why I wanted to have Nico say this is not because I appreciate his thoughts, but also because Buddhism itself is actually a very important faith in terms of what it says about something called meditation. And I wanted to mention this to you because it might be something that you would like to practice. I'm not a Buddhist, okay? I'm fascinated in many religions, but I'd like to tell you something about what I know about Prince Siddhartha Gautama. Okay, well, want to stay here? Say we're gonna. Do you want to know how Buddhism was created? It is a fascinating story that tells us something about how humans perceive the world around them and how they deal with anguish. Have you heard of this word called anguish? I'm gonna write this down for you, okay? And I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna try do a little bit of this. We'll do this together today. But for those of you online, you're now gonna see me over here. But you can see it here, and I can teach from here, okay? But let's do this, okay? So everybody sees this. Okay, so we're gonna call this slide. I'm making a little PowerPoint slide on the fly. Thoughts from Nico, okay? Because this is how it started. N-I-K-K-O? N-I-K-O, okay. So, thoughts from Nico on Buddhism. Make sure this is working. So I'm teaching here, and everybody's good. You can see it there. And okay, Brandon, is it clear? Do you see me standing right now at the smartboard?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Good. Excellent. Okay. So I want to tell you about Siddhartha Gautama, and I want to tell you about one important thing, and then we're going to get going on the big topic today, which is our blueprint for Mars. But this all connects. I'm not just talking about Buddhism separately. I've established, starting last week for all of you, that when we go live off the planet, when we start to leave planet Earth, it's going to have a real impact on the human mind. It's going to affect us. And the way it will affect us, it will be psychological, but it will also affect us spiritually. And so we need to understand a little bit about how our religions can help us understand what we need to be doing when we leave the planet. What religion might help us the most in dealing with this new reality? Does that make sense? Mediha, does it? Okay, great. So imagine this. You mentioned, Nico, Siddhartha Gautama, from what century? Can you just remind us?
The 6th and 5th centuries of BCE.
Okay, so we're going to talk about, let's say, the 500s BCE. About 2,500 years ago. And we say BCE before Common Era. It's more neutral. It's not so much focused around the idea of Jesus, before Jesus. We talk about the Common Era, not before Christ. But it's still the same time frame. 2005. There was an Indian prince who was wealthy, but he saw around him where he was living at that time in his kind of compound or court where he lived with his wealthy family, when he would go for walks. This is what we believe is the story from Indian history. He did not understand something. He was thoughtful and reflective, unlike a lot of wealthy people who care only about getting wealthier. He actually was quite conscious of the bigger world and inequality. And he started to ask himself a question like, why are people poor and I'm rich? Why am I suffering still? Why do I have this feeling of anguish? We would say today, anguish is stress. But anguish is a deeper word. It means that you are torn up inside. You feel like you're suffering inside. You don't understand why, but you're in pain. And you want it to end. It's more than just stress. You're in almost agony. He was feeling this anguish, and he didn't know where it was coming from. But he was in anguish about what he was seeing with poor people. He was also in anguish about the fact that he was feeling things that he didn't understand. Think about yourself for a moment. You have feelings. I'm not going to ask you what they are, I promise you. That's too personal. But I know for a fact that you have feelings, some feelings that you don't like. And you wonder, what do I do with this? So the prince, he left his court. The story goes that he went for a long walk. He walked into the forest and he sat beneath a tree. He sat beneath a tree for a long, long time. This is the beginning of the meditative pose. You've probably seen this, the Buddha, sitting in a kind of meditative, with it cross-legged. Well, this started with the prince. He sat underneath a tree for a long, long time in a quiet place because he wanted to answer the question, why am I suffering? But he didn't pray. He didn't get on his knees or think about his God or gods. He didn't have any. But he wanted to, with his own critical common sense, he wanted to answer this question, why am I suffering so much? How do I end the suffering of the people I see who are poor, of my own anguish? And the way he did it was he just sat in a quiet place in nature for many, many, many hours until gradually the answers started to come to him. The water stopped boiling. There's a student who said in a class recently here, in one of my classes, a wonderful phrase this student used, which is, you can't see your own reflection when the water is boiling. Think about that for a moment. You can only see clearly when the water has stopped boiling, and there is your reflection in the water, nice and clear. Make sense? Well, this is the same idea. It's the idea that the prince was beginning to meditate. That's what meditation is. You sit quietly in some place where there's no noise. You don't have your computer on. You don't have your earbuds in your ear. It's just you and your mind. And if you sit quietly long enough, the answers come to you. And so, what do you think was the answer that the prince came to? This conclusion, because this is the essence of this great faith, and it tells us something about what we might have to do a lot more of when we're on Mars. In fact, it might be something you have to do a lot more of to deal with stress, anguish. When we go to Mars and we live off the planet, the human being will be under enormous psychological stress, particularly the humans that can't come home. So, what do you think the prince answered? After all of these hours, he finally had an answer for why I'm suffering so much. And it wasn't from scriptures, it wasn't from the Torah or the New Testament or the Quran or the Veda scriptures or any other religion or faith. It came from his conscience. Anybody want to take a crack at this? Try and answer this question? Well, I'll come back to that after we watch the couple of videos, okay? And we'll see. Nico, do you want to try answering this before we move on, and we'll come back a little bit later and answer it? Why was the prince suffering so much? Why am I suffering? COVID, brain fog. Okay, fair enough.
Maybe it wasn't in Nirvana or anything like that. I don't know.
What's nirvana? What's the enlightenment state that he was reaching? Yeah, he started to come to a state when the water stopped boiling. Things were, and oh, the pen, I'll come back. What?
Well, Nirvana is like the elimination of greed, hatred, and ignorance, and all that, and like gaining enlightenment and whatever, you know.
Okay, I'm going to help you. Okay, and then we'll move on. Why am I suffering? The essence of nirvana, or we might say enlightenment, is lack of appetite. Meaning, if you stop wanting and desiring and just be, if you let go, or as John Lennon once sang, the Beatles, Let It Be, it's a famous song. You might have heard of it from the Beatles because they're kind of eternal in their influence. If you just stop desiring and just let things be, you'll stop suffering. Now, if you're in a lot of physical pain, it's a little bit different. You may need some help, for sure. But when we talk about mental torment, if you don't have a mental health issue, or you're not mentally in need of medication because you have a legitimate clinical medical health issue, then maybe the problem is you just want things too much and you don't know how to sit and just be calm. And once you start to do that and get to that state of calmness, you start to become enlightened. So I'll let that sit for you a little bit as we move on to Mars, because we may find that we need some of this meditative ability to handle the stress of living on Mars, just the way we all need help handling the stress in our lives right now on Earth. And the way we can do that is by sitting calmly in nature and watch what happens to us. We calm down. We want less. We become happier. Does it make sense? You kind of get that idea? Okay. Great, Nico. You can grab a seat unless you want to add anything to this thought or want to, text your father and see if he can help us.
He's working.
He's working? Okay, so we'll let you go. And but is there anything you want to add to this thought about the prince and what he concluded sitting underneath a tree all these years ago?
I'm not sure. I'm
Okay,
getting-
grab a seat. Okay, so thanks a lot. Now we're going to switch gears because I'd like to show you two videos, one brief and one a little bit longer, both made by students as their final assignments in this class. And I'm going to run them here, but for the students who are watching online, you will see in the live chat, the first video is called Nowhere But Up. And the second video is called Resonating Questions. Could you please click and start watching Nowhere But Up? And we're going to watch that here. And then when you're done, we will come back and have a brief discussion, okay? So please click on Nowhere But Up. And for all of you, let me go to our, here, you go to the Vimeo page, and Nowhere But Up is right there. Here it is. And I will bring that over here for now. So we'll bring the video here and we'll bring that there. Great. Okay. A student in this class did this as his final assignment a few years ago. And I will just run it. Oops, just a second.
I don't know. It's they're not even sure. That's funny.
Yeah, and then
It's so
she's
new.
like, "Oh well, with AI detectors, there's not like a very what's accurate one there."
A student did this for his final assignment in this course, and I'm going to show you something else in a moment, but I just want to check in with you and see how many of you might want to do a video for your final assignment and not something written. He was reflecting. He was reflecting on this idea of space exploration and what it means, and his conclusion was that we need to go up because there we will discover more that will help solve problems down here, that we will discover new resources. You may not agree with this, but he was trying to connect the two worlds, here on Earth and off planet, to try and answer the question, how can we make things better down here? So just curious right now, Nico, if you had the option after doing 5 reflections that you've written, and you will see in the assignment sheet for the 6th assignment, 6th reflection, which is it could be a video. Would you want to do a reflective video? Would you have the skills, or would you want to practice those skills making a video in any way? Do you think it would be helpful for you to do that? Okay. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Like I can speak just fine for like the assignment, like record my voice just fine, but like for like the video part and all the music and whatever,
Yeah.
like I'm not exactly sure about that.
Okay. Well, you don't have to.
I just know how to use MP3s and whatever and stuff like
It's
that.
it's an option.
Personally, though, I'd probably write.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone here as you watch this that you begin to think maybe I will do a video instead of something written? Think about it. You will have that option. You can also stand up here in the final class and do a presentation. Talk like I am with things happening here, and it could be your presentation on the same topic that you were planning to write about. You can do it as a presentation. Brandon, Jalen, Maria, Tessa, do any of you have any interest, do you think, in doing a video for your final reflection, the big assignment, the 6th reflection?
For me, I like the idea, like you know, like how like when you have expectation versus reality, the idea just seems a bit like it will be a lot more fun, but like you do have to add a lot more effort to it, and then there's a lot more struggles behind it. Like for example, maybe if you not properly learn how to properly edit, you have to learn all about that. So it's basically just adding more time. So, and many times where I'm like, oh, let me pick the video one because that'll be more fun, and it became, and like I got like a worse mark, and it's probably like I would get a better mark if I just did it the normal way or like the initial way of planning it and not do something different.
Okay. Keep in mind that in today's professional world, video is being used more and more as a way of communicating between colleagues. A manager will make a video to communicate something to the people working around him. You may make a video as part of a presentation. So it's not a bad skill to have. and to even try. But I just want you to be aware. I'm going to show you now just the first few minutes of a very big video a student did for this class, because he really wanted to answer some big questions that humanity is facing. And so for those of you online right now, go ahead and click on resonating questions. You'll see it in the live chat. And take a look at what this student did. And I'm not going to show you the whole video. It ended up being 20 minutes. And he asked me for an extension because he really, really wanted to address some big questions in this form of a video. And originally, I only gave him 3 to 5 minutes. But he said, I need more time, I need more time. And I said, go for it. And in the end, he produced something really good. And he was very proud of it. And another student did the same thing in one of my classes, and she ended up winning an award at Trent University in their film festival contest. So, in fact, another student did a video for this class, and it was nominated for the TV Ontario Short Documentary Contest. So, you may have more talent than you realize. Okay? So, take a look at this. Resonating questions. Make sure this is on. I could show you quite a bit more of this, but it's a student reflecting on the problems on this planet and what we can do about them. And it was for a different course, not Humanity's Destiny, but for Short History of the World. But this was very much about the future, what he was trying to help us to understand. He was posing difficult questions for us to try and answer. So, for those of you online, Jalen, did you have a chance to take a look at resonating questions?
Some of it, yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to try and show you more examples of student work in the next weeks, including written papers, so you can see the quality and thoughtfulness that students are bringing to their final assignments. My job as your professor and your teacher is to draw out of you more than you realize is in you, to get you to care, so you can start to see what you're capable of that you are capable of better thinking, more creativity, deeper critical thinking, higher quality work. And that way, I can assure that you will graduate and you'll be more positioned to succeed. That's my job. Okay, so does anyone have any questions before we really start with our big part of the class? And I'll just wait for a moment. Anybody have any questions about anything before we get going? Great, okay. Then I don't see anything online right now, and I'm gonna we have our notes there. So Brandon, are you ready to start drawing? Oh, hold on. Brandon, are you ready to start drawing? I think he might have disappeared momentarily. Okay, well, he'll come back. Brandon, we're going to start then, and I will check with Carol and see if there's anything we have digitally. Okay, Carol, that we could use. What do you think? You want to try, and are you good? And pull up something, because I want to start where we were last week, but also to bring in something of what we've been discussing right now, which is, for a moment, I want you to be quiet. You're meditating. You're like the prince. I'd like you to, except for Carol, who needs her computer open, I'd like you to close your computer. So Cece, close your laptop. Parsa, close your laptop. Mubarak, same. Nico, and close your phone, okay? Because I want your head here. We're going to be using our imaginations for the moment, okay? Okay, and same, Tessa, Maria, Jalen, are your heads with us right now?
Yeah.
Good. Good. Great. Okay, I see it in the live chat. Excellent. The three critical qualities of a human being to succeed in the most difficult times is you need imagination, you need courage, and you need perseverance. First is imagination. So I want to start thinking about, what does it look like on Mars when we land there? We're not going to go online. We're not going to look for anything right now. We're not going to add any new information. I simply want you to actually, just for even a few seconds, this is not easy. Nico?
You think there's water?
Well, it's believed that there is some, yes. And there's been quite a bit of research done on, as there's an area of Mars where scientists are starting to drill where they think there's more water. They've seen tiny molecules that they think is some kind of liquid water that was there. The molecules are there.
Yeah, one place I think about a lot about Mars is the big mountain called Mount.
Okay, good, good. Okay, you're thinking. The hardest thing to do is this part right now, which is to get your minds around the idea that there's another planet where humans could be living. And I mean real, not in terms of a movie, not in terms of a video, but actually you are thinking about and imagining it as a real thing. And then you have to hold that thought for longer than a second or two. Because this is what happens when you start to tap into your imagination and you unplug. Your mind is chaotic. You're thinking many, many things. But when you can start focusing on one thing for a longer period, you start to reach an incredible state, which is something like what the prince reached. But also Albert Einstein even said this too. One of our great scientists and physicists of the 20th century, a name you all know. He said, The reason he was able to come up with the ideas that he did is because he could hold one thought in his mind longer than anybody else. In other words, he could think about something longer and longer, and gradually he began to solve the problem in his imagination because he could concentrate. This is very difficult, especially in our generation today, all of us, when we rely so much on being plugged in. Good. Let's start seeing what your imaginations are picturing. First, we go to the imagination, and then we will find out later when we check online what is the reality? What does science say? What do we really know about Mars? But first, we've got to start with your imagination because that's where everything starts, the human imagination. Okay, let's go online. Jalen, as you begin to think about Mars and people on Mars, what do you see?
I see everything being red,
Yep.
and
It's because the soil on Mars is impacted by the mercury, not mercury, the iron. There's a lot of iron in our planet at the core, but there's also iron on the surface of Mars that has turned it red. It's not the sun, it's the iron there. So let's take this further. Last week, we started to talk about that, and I think you had mentioned that, right? Last week, Jalen, about the reddishness. We know Mars is more red. We know the soil is more red, for sure. We know a number of things. But now, Jalen, what's the first building that you see? I mean, we've got, imagine, humans there. How many humans do you see living there?
I see like a very small community, maybe about, I would say 100.
100?
Mhm.
Okay, a small community. Brandon, are you with us? Okay. Carol, are you ready to go over to the smartboard and do some drawing? So we're going to get Carol set up at the smartboard, and we're going to draw this. We're going to draw the early sort of idea of what Mars looks like. And do your best. You know, if it's not anything complicated, don't worry. It can be really simple. But the first human colony on Mars. And Jalen, why do you say 100? It's a lot of people. How would we have gotten all those people up there?
The reason I said 100 because I know Mars is slightly smaller than Earth, so, and I know there might not be as much people, so 100 is a pretty reasonable number.
Okay, we'll say for the sake of this right now, we're dealing with 100 humans. Okay, so here you go. Nice. Oh, you've already started. Okay, try and start that. Okay, that's great. Okay, start drawing that. Okay, Carol's going. She's going to start to draw, and we can add to this. So we have 100 people, and where do they come from? Jalen? Everywhere on the planet, or is there a particular part of the planet they come from, or will there have been a competition and people are chosen, the 100 people? Probably a competition. Okay, so we have 100. Carol is going now on this, and I'm going to show you what this is great. And for those, here's what she started. So Carol, that's what they're seeing. If you look behind you, right over on that monitor, you'll see what they're seeing. Oh, you can actually look right to your right, Carol. The monitor, they see you, okay? And I can bring the camera over there. I'm having some fun here today too with this technology, all for the sake of ensuring that we can think this through together. So we're going to let Carol continue to draw, but let's add some things to this and layer in. So 100 humans are there. I can almost tell you for certain that before you die in your lifetime, you're going to see something like this happen. Now, it won't be exactly like that, but you're going to see something that approximates this idea and how momentous that will be. Probably people will be watching this 24/7. Grab a seat if you want. Probably people will be watching this 24/7 on a website. It'll be live, and there will be millions and millions of people around the world watching in real time humans living on Mars. So, okay, 100 people. What's the first building that will be there? I mean, what are the humans there going to be sleeping in the wild, in a place that is much colder with less gravity and harder to breathe because of less oxygen? So where are these 100 humans going to be living? What is the building going to look like?
They'll probably build a headquarters to start.
Yeah, okay, it's a headquarters of some sort. And in this place, what will be a critical room where these humans will be? Will there be individual rooms for them? Do you imagine it as they'll be staying together or individually and they come together in a larger room? Will they be eating somewhere? But what will they be? How will they be living in this structure?
I almost imagine bunk beds to start.
What's that?
I almost imagine bunk beds to start.
Bunk beds to start. Okay, so why don't we say for now we're going to have some sort of sleeping quarters, but we know for certain one thing. They're not going to have a lot of room. They're going to have to maximize the space that they have built for them because it will take them much less time, definitely, to build something smaller. It will be cheaper as well. And there may be other reasons for why it has to be smaller. In other words, they're going to have to live together in close quarters for a long period of time. Think for a moment of what it was like during COVID. Think for a moment of what it was like during lockdowns. And you're going to start to get some idea of the stress that humans will be experiencing when they're living there. They will not be able to go outdoors for extended periods unless they have their equipment on that allows them to breathe properly, that they will not be contaminated in any way. They will be inside for long periods, close to others. That whole element of stress and how you deal with that stress is going to become really important. Okay, so we have this place where they're living. We have about 100 of them there. I think it's time, because we only have about 15 minutes left. Let's go over to Carol's drawing and take a look at what she has started to draw. And the idea by the end of this exercise today is nothing more than, it's very simple. I want you to have at least opened your imaginations to the idea that it is possible for humans to be living off planet Earth, and that it likely will happen in your lifetime. And so I'm trying to get you ready. I'm trying to get your minds open to this possibility. That's all. So Carol, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's there? Will help you, okay? And then we're going to move things. Here, take a microphone. Way to go, okay? So we've got the 100 people. Just start, okay?
So here I have presented a little bit of what I think might have. Of course, this is a doorway, and this is a little bit of a kind of um, handle they might use.
Yes.
That might be in and like a kind of hole, like the doors inside like our space station inside the doors
Yeah.
interior.
Yeah.
This is a kind of window like the space station, the same material way design of the space station that you would use for the windows.
Yeah.
This is that kind of ventilation heating that you might use for oxygen and
Yeah.
heating for because planet Mars is very cold.
Yes.
Another thing that I have also
Yeah, hold the microphone a little bit closer.
yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So
Great.
another thing that I also noticed that a lot is that besides they have some kind of uh, um, battery special equipment, so it produce light inside the house, inside the place, inside the space, inside the new house.
Yes.
But also, I also remember that they usually they might possibly have the extra battery engine as well. So mostly in two ways. Here I put a new puzzle with a spacesuit, but it's not a spacesuit that's used like when in the time of the Apollo mission. That time now it's more.
The Apollo missions.
It's not like the time of the Apollo mission. The astronauts' outfit is very thicker, it's very more heavier.
Yes.
Or what I have found, I remember on some documentaries from NASA
Yes.
they said that the future outfits will be more thicker, but it's more inside to the body.
Yes.
More flexibility for the person to move.
Yeah,
That's
more
what
flex-
I planned too.
Yep.
The helmet too is not gonna be too heavy like it used to be with the Apollo mission also,
Yes.
and they're more form to the head to be able to see.
How long will it
Um,
take to get dressed in this? Would you say?
They say they approximately what I have understood is they say that it will be less time in the outfit to put the outfit than the ones they put in the polar missions.
Sure.
It's less time. It's less witness time. It takes lesser time to put the outfit. It's more flexible outfit to put in.
Why don't you come back here and let's talk about the Apollo mission for a moment, because I'm not sure all the students know about the history and why this is significant. Okay, but that's great, Carol. Thanks for getting us started on that. Okay, let's. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to come. Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's great. That's great. It's really important for you to understand that we just started going into space in the last 60 to 70 years. That I grew up when I was about 7 years old. I remember the moon landing and watching this on live television. And the moment in 1969 when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon for the first time was watched all around the world. How many here, just raise a hand, have seen that moment? No? You, Carol, I'm sure, because she loves space. And Nico, have you seen Neil Armstrong walking on the moon? This is interesting. I'm assuming you've all seen this because it's such a turning point in human history. Parsa? No? This is good. And I'm glad you're honest because you need to see this. Grayson? Mubarak? Well then, hold on a second. We're going to end the class with something pretty remarkable, but I need to just double check. Brandon, are you with us yet? Tessa? Can you jump on your microphone?
Hi.
Hi. Tessa, have you ever seen Neil Armstrong walk on the moon in 1969?
I think I've seen like a little clip of it somewhere before. Like I've
Okay.
definitely seen it before, but I've never seen like the full video of it.
Okay. Great. Thank Maria. Have you?
I have not.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. And let's see who else. And Jalen, have you seen the moon landing?
I think I've seen clips of it before, but I've never seen the full thing.
Well, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I definitely need to show you the moment. And there's a reason why I'm going to end the class with this today, and I'm going to seize this moment for now, because we are now in a class called Other Worlds Part 2. And my hope today was that we would have a blueprint for our first human colony on Mars, and we've started it. Okay, and it's great. Carol got us started, and we can return to this later in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But if you have not experienced or seen when humans stepped onto the moon for the first time, you have not been there for a critical moment in human history when we went to another world. So it's important you see this. But it's also important because I want to read you something today I was planning to end with, and then we're going to go to the moon landing. There's a person named Carl Sagan. He's one of our great astronomers and scientists of the 20th century who did a television series in the 1980s called Cosmos. Some of you may be familiar with the name Neil deGrasse Tyson. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson was a student of Carl Sagan's. Carl Sagan is sort of the original public scientist who made astronomy accessible to the masses, the way Neil deGrasse Tyson did when he did his Cosmos series. He was basing it on the original Cosmos series done by Carl Sagan. Some of you may have seen a video called The Pale Blue Dot. You might have seen online. At any rate, I want to read you something that Carl Sagan wrote about human exploration. It's coming from the mind of a person who has written more extensively and maybe thought more deeply in a very accessible way about other worlds, about our quest as humans to get off the planet, to leave the planet and go somewhere else and explore it. Here's what he says in his book, A Vision of the Human Future in Space. A Vision of the Human Future in Space. This is Carl Sagan. If you Google his name or watch anything that he's done, he's one of our most important thinkers about space exploration, and a good writer too. We humans were wanderers from the beginning. We knew every strand of tree for 100 miles. When the fruits or nuts were ripe, we tasted them. We tried them. We followed the herds of animals in their annual migrations. We rejoiced in fresh meat through stealth, feint, ambush, and assault. A few of us cooperating accomplished what many of us, each hunting alone, could not. We depended on one another. Making it on our own was as ludicrous to imagine as was settling down. We needed to be together. Working together, we protected our children from the lions and the hyenas. We taught them skills they would need and the tools. Then as now, technology was the key to our survival. Then as now, technology was the key to our survival. Long before Columbus Indonesian Argonauts in outrigger canoes explored the Western Pacific. People from Borneo settled Madagascar. Egyptians and Libyans circumnavigated Africa, and a great fleet of ocean going junks from Ming Dynasty China crisscrossed the Indian Ocean, established a base in Zanzibar, rounded the Cape of Good Hope, and entered the Atlantic Ocean. We are explorers. So, when we talk about this idea of other worlds, and when I show you this clip of us landing on the moon, I'm talking about something that is basic to who you are as a human being. In all of us, Carl Sagan was trying to help us to understand. When you see Neil Armstrong step onto the moon with the other members of his crew in the great Apollo mission, one of them that Carol is referring to, because all through the 1960s and early 1970s, there were something like 15 Apollo missions. When we went in our spacecraft for the first time and we left the planet and we began to explore the moon and other parts of our own very near kind of vicinity of different planets, but we didn't get as far as Mars. We didn't go down to Venus or Mercury. We certainly didn't get any further, but we were starting to leave the planet, and we were watching this all on live television. We went there largely because we wanted to. Each of you, if you really think about it, has an explorer in you. You cannot stop that. That's what Carl Sagan is trying to tell us. The reason why we are leaving planet Earth now and going elsewhere is because humans want to. Not for money, not for resources, but ultimately because they want to see what's out there. That's so human. So let's just watch Neil Armstrong, and I'll find this. It's such a simple search online, and I'm going to end the class there. But first, let's go to, I'll open a tab here. Let's go to YouTube. I'll come up here. Just a second. And then it's so easy. Moon landing 1969. Oh, we can watch Walter Cronkite do it. This was what okay. This is what I saw. This was running on television. Walter Cronkite, he was the anchorman for CBS News in 1969. In 1969, there were only 3 television networks. There was no computers yet, no cable, nothing. There was television in your home with just 3 channels: ABC, NBC, and CBS. The American channels, CBC and CTV in Canada, and that was it. It was all on television. There was no smartphone. There was no laptop. But there was television. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Okay, good. Oh, this is a simulation. We don't want the simulation. We don't want this. We want the real thing. Hold on. I'm doing this on the fly right now. So here we go. Here we go. I'm gonna. Okay, you ready? Here we go. We're gonna watch the moment when a human stepped on another celestial body, not a planet, the moon, our moon. In your lifetime, this is going to happen on Mars. That's the thought I'd like you to think about when you leave today's class. Get ready. In 1969, when I was 7 years old, this was happening on live television. A human being was stepping onto the moon, and we were watching this live. I'm going to end the class now, and I can share this link in the live chat so you can watch it more because it's so fascinating. It's one of the most famous, most important moments in modern human history. It's the moment when we humans step on another place in our solar system. As you think about today's class, you will be doing a reflection. The fourth reflection is about today's class. I'm asking for, the fifth reflection is about today's class. It's due on December 1st. You'll see on this net. I'm asking you to include 2 research references in this, okay? Think about what we just talked about, and you may want to use for your research reference something else that relates to what it's going to be like when we step on Mars. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. And does anyone have any questions? I'll come back to our online group as well. Is everybody clear on what I will be asking you to do for your 5th reflection? You good? Everybody?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Nico, Grayson, Parsa, anybody here? Cece, I'm here if you want to talk. But I'm going to, conclude the class. Everything will be posted for you in DC Connect. As you walk away from today's class, if you can, try to hold on to the thought that you are not on the planet, but actually on Mars. See if you can hold on to that thought for 10 seconds. Anyways, have a good week, okay? And I'll see you next week, and I'm here if you need to talk to me. Okay. And bye.